Hi, and welcome to Matt Holman Talks Mental Health, the podcast where I have the opportunity to sit down and chat to amazing humans. Today, I have the great pleasure to welcome Sharon to this conversation. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, Matt.
Hello, welcome. As I always do, just a very quick introduction from me, and I'll let you do the proper introduction, please. So Sharon and I have known each other through social media. Seems to be a theme, actually, with some of these recordings. Social media, more primarily onto LinkedIn, the professional platform where we both sort of talk about our experiences and the things we do, the work that we do within mental health. And it's just great to sort of meet up with people who have a similar sort of theme running through their lives. So Sharon, that's my introduction. I think you're a great human. I love the work you do. I love your posts. So tell everybody all about yourself and what you do.
Well, thank you. I'm Sharon, as you said, and I am a mental health first aid instructor with Mental Health First Aid England. And I have also been working in the health and fitness industry for, I'm going to give my age away here, 30 years. So I have been personal training, running my own business, personal training, and supporting people's overall wellness, really, is how I would describe myself. For most of my working career, actually. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do.
Amazing. Wow, we're going to talk about all those different elements and that long career that you've had in personal training as well. But the big question, as always in these conversations, is your journey with mental health. Now, you define what that means and what you want to tell people, but tell some of your story. Let people know who you are.
Yeah. Okay. So mental health for me is actually quite exciting now because, as you will know, Matt, and many people listening to this, no one really talked about mental health before. And, you know, we all have mental health, right? But people still see that phrase mental health as a negative because they associate it with ill mental health. But times are changing and people are learning more and more, and the world is opening up for more discussions around the topic of mental well-being. Now, for someone that has experienced depression and anxiety most of my life, so my first diagnosis was the age of 11,
Wow.
where ill mental health just wasn't recognised in children. To have people actually having conversations now, even like we are, to me is actually a real positive. So I've kind of gone, I wouldn't say full circle, but I definitely see that it is becoming more positive. Of course, we've got a lot more to do. But if you just said to me even 5 years ago, Sharon, would you ever talk about your mental ill health and your struggles? I would never have spoken. I would never have had the strength to talk about it through fear of being judged, being called all the things that I've heard people say about other people in the past, ruining my career, which I pretty much did on my own at one point because I was experiencing what I call a physical and mental breakdown.
Right.
So I've come a really long way, and I think, you know, when you think you found your vocation, so personal training has always been a really big part of my life. I did work experience at a leisure centre when I was 14, purely because I thought it would be a bit of a DOS. I thought, oh yeah, I'll go to a leisure centre, that would be really easy, and I loved it. So I already knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I wanted to do something around exercise. I was never sporty, by the way. I'm not a sporty person, but I just liked exercise.
Yeah.
So that's what took me into personal training. And I really thought, oh my God, I found what I want to do. I really want to help people, and I think I'm quite good at it. And I was a break from the normal stereotype, if I can use that phrase, of someone in lycra with a six-pack and I'm the personal trainer and the client's down there. You know, that's not ever been me. So I've really evolved in that. And then obviously, as the years have gone on, I noticed the massive link with physical and mental health, and how I was able to offer people that insight and support just through what I'd learned myself through lived experience and self-taught. And then obviously I've gone on to now teach mental health first aid. And I do that purely because I did the course as a delegate, going into it thinking I already knew a lot.
Yeah.
And leaving, realizing I really didn't know very much at all until I did the course. So yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now.
Wow.
So it's a better place than I was in a lot of times before.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm going to break that down with you as well. We'll talk about different elements, because I think there's so many different parts within there that you've taken on board, you've changed and you've evolved. And, you know, in the latter part of that story, what's lovely is you're using these experiences and your personal understanding and awareness of mental health to help support the conversation further.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That's critical. We'll touch on that towards the end of this, and I think we'll talk about where you want to be and what you want to do next with that. But I would like to go back to those earlier days. So the first part of that, you said very clearly, you know, you had been diagnosed with depression, anxiety at a very young age, and you know, recognizing there's lots of people that are struggling right now with young people. How was that? Can you define that or describe that when you were in those, you know, younger years? How was it for you?
Yeah, it was. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Right. Yeah.
It was like having an overwhelming sense of fear, but not really knowing why.
Yeah.
Having a sense of, well, I had no worth. The shame was crippling. The shame of it was absolutely crippling. And I felt so alone, even though I wasn't alone. You know, I am fortunate that I have a really supportive family.
Right.
And they might not have always done what was necessarily the best thing for me, but they definitely did what they thought was right in that moment. And they fought for me. They fought really hard. I mean, my parents took me to about 9 different doctors looking for some kind of support. And they got turned away every time, saying that it didn't exist. I was too young.
Wow.
9 is too young. And eventually they paid for me to go to Great Ormond Street Hospital. And I actually only just found out that they paid. Right. I thought that was something the doctors had referred me to.
Okay.
Now, how my parents found the money for that, I've got no idea. You know, we're going back into it would have been the 80s. You know, my parents certainly didn't have much money. And it was there that I got the diagnosis. And actually what's interesting about that is my sister's a psychologist, and she was able to get our medical notes. Okay. And those medical notes said it was the worst case of childhood depression that they'd ever come across. Now, I don't believe that to be true. In fact, I don't believe it's true. Right. But I just don't think it was something that was necessarily seen that often. That doesn't mean to say it didn't exist. No. I think it just was never spoken about. I wonder how many other children my age were just turned away and left to kind of try and manage try and make a sense of the world and themselves on their own. It was incredibly challenging. I can't, you know, everything that people might talk about now or understand is that I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, I didn't feel like I had any friends, I had no energy, I couldn't function. The slightest thing would reduce me to tears. Yeah. All of those things that I think a lot of people will experience now. And do you know what, Matt? The thing that I have always battled with in my head is why?
Yeah.
Why me? And when I say why me, I don't mean that in a pitiful sense. I don't mean like why me. I mean, what was it in my character and my weaknesses that took me to that dark place? Yeah. What could I just didn't understand what I could have done differently to have prevented it, particularly at that age. So I spent and a lot of counselling is based around that. You know, they'll go over the past. Yep. And they'll look at the past and they'll delve into the past to try and find these sections of pain or anything that you need to discuss to work on. And actually I spent 40 years doing that, and it wasn't until I stopped doing that I got a breakthrough. And rather than continually looking at the past and searching for a reason why that perhaps I could have struggled so deeply, I started looking at how I could manage today. And as soon as I started doing that, it was a massive game changer.
So it's a big release of that.
That
negativity or that worry or that concern, was it?
Yes, I just stopped searching and for why and started searching for how just for today. So just for today, I'm going to, and just look at it that way, and that's been brilliant for me. So just for today, I'm going to be the best I can be today. Now, if the best I can be today is, you know, fabulously sitting here with you on a podcast, but equally, if to the best I could be today is literally getting up, going for a walk, coming home, I'm not going to beat myself up about that. Fortunately, that doesn't happen very often now, but I think we put as human beings, we put too much pressure on ourselves. A lot of the pressure we put on comes from internal thoughts of wanting to be, why I feel a failure because I'm not like that person, or I don't have a right to feel like this because I've still got a job, or, you know, my friend is homeschooling and I'm not, and I don't feel I have a right to feel this way. And actually, it's not about having a right. It's about being a human being, and you don't have to have climbed a mountain and fallen down it to experience poor mental health. Sometimes it just is, and that doesn't mean that someone isn't worth the support and the understanding than anyone else.
No, absolutely, and that's the key, isn't it? And the challenge we've got right now is you have to be on your knees begging for support, or at crisis now, don't you, to actually access anything. Was there much support when you were younger? Did you get much anything?
No, not that I remember. I can remember going to I think I was 12 when I went to see a counsellor, and it was obviously through the doctor's surgery, and I think it might have been at a child wellness centre or something like that, but it was with my parents.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So they're asking you what's going on at home with your parents sitting there. Now, I couldn't have really told you if there was anything right or wrong going on. I still don't really know, but, you know, I just wouldn't talk.
No.
And say, you look like you don't want to be here. Well, of course I didn't want to be there as a 12-year-old girl who couldn't even look at herself in the mirror. And I'm being asked in front of my parents why I felt so awful. I couldn't answer it. I remember that. I remember the school had never had anything like it. They really didn't know what to do, and they tried everything that they thought was right, and learned what was wrong by getting it wrong. And, you know, I can remember teachers turning up at the house on a Friday night, just when I was in that relief of, I haven't got school tomorrow, this is good.
Right, yeah.
The doorbell would go, and that panic. I mean, I'd go and hide under the bed. I'd run away. I'd climb out the window, run away. Just the fear. And I couldn't tell you what that fear was. I got driven to school in the car with the child locks on, and 4 teachers came out and grabbed me by my arms and literally forced me into the building. And there was no malice there, but I think they just didn't know what else to do. And I can remember screaming and asking them to let go and that I would walk in myself. And in the corner of my eye, I saw one of the school children who was in the year above me, who was obviously late for school that day, and he saw me being sort of not dragged into school, but forced into school with me hysterical. And it just tipped me. And as soon as they let go, I ran, and I just ran. I ran away, not for very long, but and that set me back really. That added to the phobia of whatever was causing that phobia. It added to that about going to school. And I think I would say to any child now, or any parent that perhaps has children that are feeling similar, don't put pressure on them. You know, if all your child's done today is got up and brushed their hair, that's more than they would have done yesterday. That's a step in the right direction. If your child has turned their laptop on to do their schoolwork, but they haven't actually done anything, is that a bit more than they did the day before? Then that's a win. And I think quite often we want people to feel better so quickly, we forget about those middle stages and those mini stages. And the other thing I would say, of course, is it does get better. It does. It takes time, but it does. And that, you know, we say this, Matt, as mental health first aid instructors, there is always hope, and hope can be very powerful.
Oh, 100%. And I think everybody listening, you know, hope, never lose that hope of change. I put a post out a couple of days ago about that, you know, when I had my crisis, and this isn't about me, but it was just that I never lost that hope of, you know, changing and recovering, or at least having a journey towards a recovery. And please, you know, anybody listening, know getting support is there if you look for it, but you have to fight, you have to really go after it. And you know, there are people to talk to, and always know that. I think that's such an important part of, you know, the evolution of this conversation. And I want to go back to that point that you made at the beginning, which is around, you know, a few years ago, this conversation wasn't really open. Now we're talking about it on a chat like this that is accessible to anybody who wants to listen to two of us talking about it, you know. And it's amazing because it's changing. We are changing the world slowly. And I hope, and I do, and that is the word, isn't it? It's I hope that people can connect to it and find something there. Because so the question for you then is, if you think, and I don't want to go back too often to your younger years, because you're now an adult, a wonderful adult who, you know, is doing amazing stuff. What would you tell yourself back then now? What would you think would be the best way out of that? Is there any tips you'd give?
Do you know, I got asked this the other day, and I found that quite hard to answer. It's almost a bit like, you know, when you say to someone, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And I think, I'm not sure if I can look that far ahead, but I would say to somebody back then is, don't beat yourself up so much about stuff, and you will. My mum used to sit with me and she used to say, you will look back on this and you will think, what's that all about? And almost laugh. And I used to go, I won't, Mum, I won't. I'll never be able to, I'll never be like everyone else, carefree. And she said, you will. And here I am. I mean, you know, I'm not carefree, but I'm, you know, I'm healthy and I'm happy. And yeah, I think that if I could go back to myself back then, I would say, you will be all right. It will be all right. Yeah. I think. And I think also I would say that as you get older, I don't know about you, Matt, but someone that's experienced crisis as an adult, there is an element of living, I wouldn't say living in fear, but if you have a flat day, which everybody does, that's normal. You think, okay, I'm just having a flat day. If you're having 2 flat days, I can't lie and say, I don't think, is it going to happen again? Is that going to come back? And then you start to look at, okay, what can I do just for today that might make me feel a bit better? I think that's learning the right coping strategies. And I think when I had what I call a physical and mental breakdown, which was 8 years ago, I can just remember that was the worst crisis point I think I've been at, because I thought, I can't go through this again. How many more times can you pick yourself up and dust yourself off, so to speak? I just didn't think I'd have the strength. I really didn't. And that scared me.
Of course,
that scared me.
Yeah, and two different things, similar things, but two different, because one was when you were a child and one's obviously in your adulthood. And so how did you come through that one? How did you sort of bounce back from that?
I wouldn't say bounce
back. No, I said it and I didn't mean to say it. And I can't edit it out. So apologies to anybody that thought that was a really harsh way. Come on, you must have bounced back, right?
No, I know.
So how did you come through?
I think as an adult, it was a lot harder, I would say, because I was a lot more secretive, I would say. So I wasn't taking any time off work, but I wasn't turning up for work, if that makes sense. So I'm self-employed. So I would say to clients, I've got flu. That's what I did say, actually. And I had 2 weeks off work. Now, that wasn't a complete lie, because I actually did have physical. It felt very physical. I was shaking, I couldn't eat, I had a headache. There was all of that, but it was pure anxiety and depression that had taken me to that phase. When I went back to work, I'd lost a lot of weight. So everyone was like, oh, you've lost a lot of weight. Oh, because you've had flu. Or being in the personal training world, every day you will get someone say, you've lost weight, you look well. Or you'll get, you've lost weight, you don't look very well. Or you'll get, you've put weight on. People like to tell you what you look like as a personal trainer. But I wasn't. We talk about absenteeism and presenteeism in the workplace. And, you know, I might have turned up, but I certainly wasn't I didn't take my whole self to work.
No.
And for that, my business really suffered, and I can appreciate that. But what scared me was the fact that I just didn't want to be here anymore, and I was making plans to not be here anymore, and serious plans.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I really didn't want to not be here anymore. I just didn't know how to cope with the pain. I wanted the pain to go. But I guess the fortunate side of that is I knew the signs, and I drove straight to the doctor's surgery. Well, about 3 days later, after making serious plans, I drove to the hot doctors and just walked in. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't actually speak. And they asked me what was wrong, but I had to write because I couldn't get the words out. And that sounds really, really lame, but I physically couldn't speak. And I wrote it down, and I just said, I can't stop crying. And they were like, okay. And the doctors were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And they really supported me that day. And then from there, I had cognitive behavioural therapy, which I do think was a game changer. But when I say game changer, this is a long time after that episode. I got myself into loads of debt by ringing online counsellors in the middle of the night. All over the world, I would just Google online counsellor for I just wanted to talk to someone that would just understand and listen. And I spent all my savings. I wasn't really earning very much money because I wasn't working much. And I got myself in dire straits. But would I do that again to be where I am now? Yeah, because ultimately I'm still here.
Yep.
It might not have been the best approach. Well, it wasn't the best approach, but at the time it was a lifesaver.
Yeah, but you know what, like you say, you're still here. That's the most important part of it. You come through, and you know, you found this pathway in your journey which has got you to where you are now. And how are you now? How do you feel now?
Yeah, I feel very good, actually. I think when you have friends and family that know about your life experience, and I only started talking about it publicly, I would say 3 years ago,
Okay.
Which was a relief. I think that I'm very good. I'm very stable. And I think when there are blips in the road, such as the last year, it's been a massive blip in the road for most of us.
Yeah.
I'm putting that nicely.
Yeah. Something happened. I don't know.
Family and friends will always be like, are you all right? Are you all right?
Yeah.
You're all right. And actually, I have been all right. And you know why? Because I just look at today.
Yeah.
I just look at today, and we're all in it together at varying degrees. And I can't change it. I can't change what's going on. I can only do the best I can do today. And for that reason, I'm good. If I looked ahead at this time next year, well, I don't know what's going to happen in a year. So I just don't really go there. I make plans. I think what I'd like to do, and I think, right, how am I going to get there? But I don't make it my life goal to get to that place.
Yeah.
So I'm actually doing very well. Thank you, Matt.
Brilliant.
It's okay. I mean, it's not easy. No. I live on my own. I do have up and down days, but everybody does.
We say you live on your own. You've got Smokey the Saffy with you as well, haven't you?
I've got Smokey the Saffy. He's been very quiet.
Yeah, he's been a good boy. He's done well. That's because you took him for a nice walk earlier.
He's hiding down there. So I rescue seniors, and he's been a joy because Smokey came to me with just as much anxiety as me.
Oh right, okay, but that's good.
So he had severe alopecia.
Yeah, amazing. And it's a great story as well, isn't it? So people can see that story with you and Smokey as well. And I'll drop a link to it because I think it's a great story to sort of read as well.
Yeah, Britain's most unluckiest dog.
Yeah, well, that was it, wasn't it? That was the headline for him. He was known as Britain's most unluckiest dog, and look at him now. He's a lucky boy now, isn't he?
I don't know if I can get you to see him. Let's see.
I don't know. For anybody on the podcast listening,
it's a bit dark down there, everybody. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the joys of winter. We've got this darkness.
He will make an appearance. Don't worry, at some point.
But you know, so you've got Smokey as well. It's just a fascinating story, and you know, we've been chatting for 25 minutes, believe it or not, already, and it's just the time just flies on these conversations. So I will ask you to sort of, you know, put some final thoughts in there, a bit Jerry Springer style, but but you know, from my perspective, I think it's just incredible, your journey, and I love these opportunities to just listen to people's real life experiences. And I know you've shared it, I know, you know, in other media and forums and stuff, but for the audience that listen to this podcast, it will probably be new and the first time, but it's that you're accessible as a human. You know, a lot of us have got young children who we are worried about, you know, with anxiety and signs of depression and their low motivation and things. And I think what you've shared is so helpful for many, you know, to listen to say, look, and from personal experience with my daughter, it's, you know, it's something that we've had to battle through. I can empathize with your parents having that, don't know what to do. You've come through that. You've been through another crisis point. You've come back, you know, not saying bounce back because that's totally the wrong word, but you've come back and now you're doing great stuff. So the final question really is, what do you want to do in the future with what you're doing? Have you got a plan for that? And I know you say you don't want to look too far ahead, but do you have an aspiration there? Is there something you want to try and get out?
I think for me, it's fairly simple. And and I know it sounds a bit Jerry Springer, and a lot of people say that, but if in sharing my story, and, you know, it's not like I'm famous and I'm this person who's got this story and everyone's like, oh yeah, I'm just a regular person. There was no massive trauma in my life. You know, it just is what it is. You know, I just so happened to experience really severe depression and anxiety. You know, it wasn't like drug induced, like a rock star or anything. There's no fancy story to this. And I think if people can see that and see that you can come out the other end, and that it does get better, then to be honest with you, I'm quite happy. And if someone said, what's your aspiration? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Do you know what I'd say? Happy.
Brilliant.
I want to be happy.
Yep.
It honestly is that simple.
And I'm not going to challenge that. Let's hope we're all happy, and let's keep more positive. And you are a really positive and infectiously positive person. So keep going with all of that. And when you struggle, let us know. And when you're happy, let us know. And I know you do. And I think that's so wonderful. And it's just, you know, for me, it's been a pleasure to catch up. And we were talking, just for anybody listening, we were talking before we recorded this. And one of the beautiful things about this is we get the chance to actually chat to each other. We tend to sort of comment on each other's posts, or maybe a message or a like or a share, but it's actually really nice just to sit down and chat. I don't know how you found it, Sharon.
Yeah, it's fabulous. And I'm on, what nobody knows out there is I dropped my laptop yesterday, so I'm on this tiny laptop, so I'm kind of really close to the screen. So sorry everybody.
Oh no,
I can't see a thing.
No, people don't need me close to the screen. You close to the screen. You work perfectly, Sharon. Yeah, and that was an interesting one. What about life's moments? You know, we were just about to record this yesterday. A few minutes before you walked away from your screen, not realizing your headphones were plugged in, and caused chaos.
It happens, right?
And it happens, absolutely. Brilliant stuff. So Sharon, thank you so much for.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Matt.
You're more than welcome. As I always say at the end of these sessions, we have talked about some quite sensitive stuff. If anybody does need any extra help or is struggling with anything at the moment, and if you're a parent who needs to talk about some experiences you might be going through, or if you're a young person listening who needs somebody to talk to, or safe space, you can always reach out to myself, and I know Sharon would. I'm sure be more than happy to take any questions if people do have them. But also know that Samaritans exist today to help support some of these conversations. If you are worried about anything, if anything that has triggered in any of these discussions that we've had and you are concerned, please do reach out to Samaritans. The number's 116-123. It's free to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Know there is always somebody there to listen. It really is so important. And in the words of Sharon, let's continue to be happy. Let's hope that happiness is a future for all of us. And that's it for the podcast. So please do subscribe, share, like, whatever it is. Let's grow these conversations. I'm looking forward to my many chats to come. And we're all going to get chatting about mental health, and it's great. So,
fantastic.
Sharon, thank you so much.
See you later. Bye.
Take care. Bye.